Well, I'm always really proud to tell this story because no one's more proud of him than I am. And so I try to be very careful since I'm speaking for him. Terry was born in Illinois. He, at the time, was the youngest of 6 children. His father was a coal miner, and his mother was expecting another baby. And at that time, the international workers of the world were trying to take over the coal mines and the railroads. And tensions were quite high between the mine owners, the railroads, and the union. And his father was actually shot and thought to be killed during a demonstration. So at the tender age of 3 years old, his mother was left alone with 6 children and another one on the way. His father was a moose. One of the local newspapers contacted the orphanage there and made arrangements for the mother to take the children to live in the orphanage. She became a domestic worker, and the children, even though their mother was living, were not allowed to live and share their life with her. They were divided up amongst their ages and sent to the dormitories with the other orphans. And so even though he had a mother, he didn't have contact with his mother. It's a very, very sad time for him, even though they were good to him. He was raised in the orphanage. He was educated in the orphanage. His siblings were in the orphanage. But when they got through their education, Mooseheart would take them to the front gate with a suitcase and $20 and welcome them to the outside world. So there he was on his own, a young man in a world without, guidance or resources. And he did try to make it on his own. He's very hard-headed and was a very proud person and a very smart person. And he went out into the world, but of course at the time, this was in the late 30s. There'd been in a horrible depression. America was not in good financial standing, and it was quite hard for him to make it. So after a while, he finally decided that maybe military life would be good for him. So he'd always seen, your typical posters of join the Navy and see the world. And so he trots himself down to the Navy recruiter and he goes, I'd like to join the Navy and see the world. And they go, well, that'd be great, and we'd love to have you. But, we don't need it. We're all full up right now. We don't need anybody for about 3 or 4 months. And he said, 3 or 4 months? Well, I need to do something now. So the Navy recruiter in Chicago actually said to him, why don't you run down to the Marine Corps recruiting office? They're always looking for a few good men. And he goes, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm man enough to be a Marine. He goes, well, you might be surprised. So off he goes to the Marine recruiter. They look at him. He's a great physical specimen. And they said, I don't think you got possibilities here. And he said, but we also need to give you an intelligence test. And he said, oh, well, okay. And he goes, how much is 2 plus 2? And he goes, well, that's easy, 22. And he goes, you'll do. You're in. So the story was that he went into a recruiting station at 10 o'clock in the morning, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he was on a train headed for San Diego. And that's where they were taking their basic training. And along about that time, the Panay gunship was sunk in China. They took the Marines that were in Honolulu, sent them to China. They took the new recruits to Hawaii to finish their basic training in Hawaii to replace the Marines that had left for China. Now, so that people will know, China Marines were very elite Marines. They had the best duty in the world. The rate of exchange was staggering. It was a very posh duty. They had houseboys and cooks and rickshaws and tailor-made uniforms, and they lived like kings. Very, very prestigious duty, and was the cream of the crop. So when Terry's men from Hawaii were given the opportunity to become China Marines, they just jumped at the chance, because that's what, you couldn't do any better than that in the Corps. But so that you'll have the background, the situation is truly that in 1937, China and Japan went to war together. So things in China were very bad. And the Marines had actually been in China since the Boxer Rebellion. And they had been left there all those years, since those times, to look after the American business interest there. Now there were Brits and Germans and French, and all these people supported the businesses that were in China to the other foreign countries.